Only one of the 9 people preparing for today's show can win the prize money of up to £10,000. The rest of the team will win nothing because their own teammates vote them the weakest link.
Welcome to the weakest link. Any of the 9 people in the studio here today could win up to £10,000. They don't know each other, however. If they want the prize money, they'll have to work as a team. But 8 of them will leave with nothing, as round by round we lose the player voted the weakest link. Let's meet the team.
I'm Richard, I'm 36, from Bletchley, and I'm a firefighter.
I'm Avis, I'm a personnel officer, and I'm from London.
My name is John, I'm 31, I work in sales and live in Colne in Lancashire.
My name is Nadia, I'm 25, I'm a lawyer, and I'm from Somerset.
My name is Martin, I'm a 33-year-old drag queen from London.
My name is Robert, I'm a press officer from London, and I'm old enough to know better.
My name is Anne, I'm 36, I live in Northamptonshire, and I'm a customer service manager.
My name is Mark, I'm 32 years old, I'm a data comms engineer from Rednall in Birmingham.
My name is Chris, I'm 44 years old, from Bradwell-on-Sea in Essex, and I have a small civil engineering company.
One recognisable face, Martin. Brave enough to have a second go.
I'm a sucker for punishment.
Nice to see you. Right, the rules. In each round, the aim is to answer enough questions correctly to reach your £1,000 target within the time limit. The fastest way is to create a chain of 9 correct answers. Get your question wrong and you break the chain and lose all the money in that chain. But if you say bank before the question is asked, the money is safe. However, you start a new chain from scratch. Remember, at the end of the round, only money that has been banked can be taken forward. You get 3 minutes in round 1. We'll start with the person whose name is first alphabetically. That's you, Anne. Let's play the weakest link. And the first question is for £20. Start the clock. Anne, how many colours are there in the visible spectrum?
7.
Correct. Mark, in the cartoon, what is Mickey Mouse's dog called?
Pluto.
Correct. Chris, Mills and Who are famous publishers of romantic novels?
Boom.
Correct. Richard, in
Bank.
classical music, what nationality was the composer Ludwig van Beethoven?
German.
Correct. Avis, which is further east, Aberdeen or Glasgow?
Glasgow.
Aberdeen. John, which TV soap has featured the characters Helen Daniels and Mrs. Mangle?
Neighbours.
Correct. Nadia, which Premiership football team does Jamie Redknapp play for?
Liverpool.
Correct. Martin, House, Field and Harvest are types of which animal?
Mouse.
Correct. Robert, what A is an alcoholic substance used for sterilising?
I've forgotten, no idea.
Antiseptic. Anne, which TV comedy duo signed off with the catchphrase, "It's good night from me and it's good night from him"?
Morecambe and Wise.
The two Ronnies. Mark, in clothing, which P is a 2-piece sleeping suit?
Pyjamas.
Correct. Chris, in entertainment, what was the name of Rod Hull's puppet partner?
Emu.
Correct. Richard,
Bank.
which British king was the father of Queen Elizabeth II?
George the 7th.
George VI. Avis, which V is the traditional religion of Haiti?
Voodoo.
Correct. John, in which American national park is the Old Faithful Geyser?
Yellowstone.
Correct. Nadia, who starred as the detective investigating Sharon Stone in the film Basic Instinct?
Michael Douglas.
Correct. Martin,
Bank.
if you were at Lima Airport, in what country would you be?
Peru.
Correct. Robert, the poem Jabberwocky appears in which Lewis Carroll novel?
Through the Looking Glass.
Correct. Anne, in art, was the Italian painter Botticelli born in the 14th or 15th century?
The 15th century.
Correct. Mark,
Bank.
in pounds sterling, how many 5-pence pieces would you get for £2?
40.
Correct. Chris, in the animal kingdom, what R is the name of a penguin's breeding ground?
Don't know.
Rookery. Richard, what are the two colours of Israel's national flag?
Blue and white.
Correct. Avis, in which American state is Elvis Presley's mansion, Graceland?
Florida.
Tennessee. John, in literature, which ale is the antiques dealer created by Jonathan Gash in his novels?
Ledyard.
Lovejoy. Nadia, was the Egyptian queen Cleopatra born AD or BC?
AD.
BC. Martin, who co-starred with Walter Matthau in the film Grumpy Old Men?
Jack Lennon.
Correct. Robert,
Bank.
in which country are the cities of Adelaide and Sydney?
Australia.
Correct. Anne, in pop music, which Frankie goes to... Time is up. I cannot complete the question. And in that round, team, you managed to bank £490 of the £1,000 you could have won in that round. Who, even at this very early stage, is too slow to stay? It's time to vote off the weakest link.
With the most correct answers, £100 banked, and the most money gained for the team, Martin is the first strongest link. Avis is the weakest link statistically, with the most wrong answers. But will the team have realised that?
Voting over, it's time to reveal who you think is the weakest link.
Robert.
Robert.
Avis.
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 Chris.
Avis.
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 Martin, why Avis?
Well, apart from the hesitation, she also banked when we had only 20 quid and then took so long over the question, it was just futile, really.
Avis, why Robert?
Because he hesitated and I couldn't vote for myself.
Right, and you don't know where Graceland, which state it's in?
It's Tennessee. I just couldn't say Tennessee.
Right, OK. Well, it's votes that count. With 6 votes, Avis, you are the weakest link. Goodbye.
As Anne said goodbye and I walked off, I was almost relieved, but it was fun. It's really hard to see who will go next because it's so early in the game, so I couldn't quite say at the moment.
Round 2, team, and so far you have banked £490 of the possible £1,000 you could have won in that first round. There are 8 of you left. We are now taking 10 seconds off the clock. We'll start with the strongest link from the last round. That's Martin. Let's play the weakest link. Start the clock. Martin, what V is the plant notable for its habit of catching and digesting insects?
Venus flytrap.
Correct. Robert, Brittany is an area of which country?
France.
Correct. Anne, what A is the scientific name given to the white part of a bird's egg?
Albumen.
Correct. Mark, President Ferdinand Marcos ruled over which country?
Pass.
The Philippines. Chris, who directed the blockbuster film Titanic?
Spielberg.
James Cameron. Richard, in jewellery, is a baguette or a croissant a cut of precious stone?
Croissant.
Baguette. John, in which century was Hadrian's Wall built?
18th century.
2nd century. Nadia, is Lombardy a region of Spain or Italy?
It's Italy.
Correct. Martin, in maths, what is 2/3 of 300?
200.
Correct. Robert, in the animal kingdom, do pythons kill by poison or suffocation?
By suffocation.
Correct. Anne,
Bank.
on the do-re-mi music scale, which note precedes so?
Proceeds. Me.
Far. Mark, which TV comedy series featured the character Herr Flick?
Hello, hello.
Correct. Chris, is Nepal situated in the Andes or the Himalaya mountain range?
Andes.
Himalayas. Richard, in our solar system, is the planet Mars or Mercury closer to the Sun?
Mars.
Mercury. John, which of King Henry VIII's wives was the mother of Edward VI?
Catherine of Aragon.
Jane Seymour. Nadia, in nature, what is grown in a paddy field?
Rice.
Correct. Martin, in the Bible, what is the 4th book of the New Testament?
Pass.
John's Gospel. Robert, which American comedian directed the films Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein and High Anxiety?
Mel Brooks.
Correct. Anne,
Bank.
where in the human body would you find cranial nerves?
In the brain.
Yes, in the skull. Mark, in art, was the 19th and 20th century British artist Sir Max Beerbohm famous for landscapes, still lifes or caricatures?
Caricatures.
Correct. Chris.
Bank.
In TV, which tough cop was famous for sucking lollipops?
Project.
Correct. Richard, how was the late rock star Freddie Bulsara more commonly known?
Freddie Mercury.
Correct. John, complete the title of the Gilbert and Sullivan opera, Yeoman of the what?
Yeoman of the Wild.
Yeoman of the Guard. Nadia, in food, what M is an Italian dessert cheese made from fresh cream?
Macaron.
Mascarpone. Martin, which English model of the 1960s was born Leslie Hornby?
Twiggy.
Correct.
Bank.
Robert, in history, during which war did the sieges of Mafeking, Ladysmith and Kimberley take place?
The Boer War.
Correct. Anne, in literature, which character created by Washington... I cannot complete the question. And in that round, team, you banked a very disappointing £190 of the possible £1,000. Who is too slow to stay? One of you is about to leave the studio with nothing. It's time to vote off the weakest link.
Answering all his questions correctly makes Robert the strongest link. John answered all his questions incorrectly, so he's the weakest link statistically. But will the voting reflect that?
Voting over, it's time to reveal who you think is the weakest link.
Anne.
Anne.
Mark.
Chris.
Mark.
Chris.
Anne.
Richard.
John.
It was the hesitation and the overall time taken
Right.
over a question.
As a sort of toss-up, which would you prefer, the questions answered correctly or the hesitation?
At the end of the day, if don't get the answer right, just keep the time flowing because there's time coming off the clock every round, so time's precious.
Well, technically and statistically, John, you were the weakest link, but it's the votes that count. A great many people did worse than you did, Anne, but you are the weakest link. Goodbye.
I would have liked to stay out there for longer. I was enjoying myself and I felt that I was just getting into the swing of things. I think I could have gone through to the final, and if not won the money, I think I would have given the winner a good run for their money. I think in the next round Richard should be voted off because he appeared to be getting all the questions wrong, and although his speed of answers was quick, the answers were wrong.
Round 3, team, and in the kitty so far is £680, but of course by now you could have won £2,000, so there is plenty of room for improvement. You are down to 7 players. We are taking another 10 seconds off the clock. We start with the strongest link from the last round. That's Robert. Let's play the weakest link. Start the clock. Robert, in the animal kingdom, what is a male elephant called?
A bull.
Correct. Mark. Tunisia, Vietnam and Algeria are former colonies of which country?
Holland.
France. Chris, in politics, Eamon de Valera was Premier of which country?
Ireland.
Correct. Richard, in the nursery rhyme, which old woman went to fetch her dog a bone?
Old Mother Hubbard.
Correct. John, in astrology, in which 2 months could you have been born if your star sign was Gemini?
June and July.
May and June. Nadia, Laura Davis and Alison Nicholas are top-ranking British women in which sport?
Golf.
Correct. Martin, did Marion Keyes or Freya North write the novel Lucy Sullivan is Getting Married?
Freya North.
Marion Keyes. Robert, in which country would you find the high-speed Shinkansen trains?
In Japan.
Correct. Mark, which knighted actor played Obi-Wan Kenobi in the original Star
Sir
Wars
Alec
film?
Guinness.
Correct. Chris,
Bank.
Mary Arden's house and Anne Hathaway's cottage are tourist attractions near which town?
Boston.
Stratford-upon-Avon. Richard, in nature, what ale is a primitive plant that is a combination of fungus and algae?
Don't know.
Lichen. John, in TV, what kind of sport would you see on WWF SmackDown?
It would be World Wrestling.
Correct. Nadia, is the musical Cabaret set in Berlin or New York?
Berlin.
Correct. Martin, The philosopher Socrates died after drinking a potion made from which poisonous plant?
Hemlock.
Correct. Robert.
Bank.
What A is a term used to describe a word formed from the same letters as another word?
Don't know.
Anagram. Mark. In which event did Herb Elliott, Peter Snell and Kip Keano win Olympic gold medals in the 1960s, the 800 metres or the 1500 metres?
1500.
Correct. Chris. During which 2 centuries did Queen Elizabeth I reign?
16th, 17th.
Correct. Richard.
Bank.
In the animal kingdom, what is a conch?
It's a shell.
Correct. John. In which decade did Chernobyl nuclear disaster take place?
In the 1980s.
Correct. Nadia.
Bank.
Which pop group claimed they were dedicated followers of fashion in the 1966 singles charts?
I don't know.
The Kinks. Martin. Where in the body would you find the ciliary muscle?
In the heart.
In the eye. Robert. In clothing, is anorak or duffel an Eskimo word?
Anorak is.
Correct.
Bank.
Mark. Which pop song did Elton John re-attribute? Time is up. I cannot complete the question. And in that round, you banked only £270. One of you is about to leave with nothing. It's time to vote off the weakest link.
The strongest link for the second time is Robert. He answered the most questions correctly. Having been the strongest link in the first round, Martin is the worst player in this round, with the most wrong answers. But will the team vote him out?
Voting over, it's time to reveal who you think is the weakest link.
Chris.
Robert.
John.
John.
Chris.
Chris.
Robert.
Mark. Why Chris?
I just thought he got a lot of his questions wrong.
Robert. Why Chris?
I think he's been a drag of the team throughout. It's about time he went.
I get it.
That's interesting, Robert. Because actually you were the strongest link in that round, but lots of people seem to want to get rid of you as well.
Sheer jealousy.
Chris, with 3 votes, you are the weakest link. Goodbye.
Hi.
I think the strong ones are Nadia and Mark. I think they will be together in the final. And I think John should go in the next round because he's just not getting the questions right. Although he's very good with the time, he's not getting any questions right.
Round 4, and there's £950 in the bank so far out of potential prize money of £3,000. 6 of you left. We are taking another 10 seconds off the clock. You now have only 2.5 minutes. We'll start with the strongest link from the last round. That's Robert. Let's play the weakest link. Start the clock. Robert, in literature, who wrote the 1892 poem Gunga Din?
Kipling.
Correct. Mark, in horse racing, Foynhaven won which race in 1967 after a riderless horse caused mayhem in the field?
The Derby.
The Grand National. Richard, in the animal kingdom, how many tentacles does a squid have?
8.
10. John, the site of the Battle of Blenheim is in which European country?
It's in Austria.
Germany. Nadia, in which English city would you find the bull ring?
Birmingham.
Correct. Martin, how many days are there in the month of May?
31.
Correct. Robert, Pierre Trudeau was Prime Minister of which country?
Canada.
Correct.
Bank.
Mark, in football, in the first 10 years of the FA Cup, which public school's old boys team won the trophy twice and were beaten finalists 3 times?
Eton.
Correct. Richard, in the USA, is Long Beach or Palm Beach in Florida?
Palm Beach.
Correct. John, nap, loo and scat are all types of what pastime?
Sport.
Card games. Nadia, at what age did Queen Victoria become monarch?
21.
18. Martin, with which unit of measurement is a horse's height measured?
Hands.
Correct. Robert, in the Bible, which angel visited the Virgin Mary to announce the birth of Jesus?
Gabriel.
Correct. Mark, in geography, the USA's southern border is with which country?
Mexico.
Correct. Richard,
Bank.
what is the name of the Italian soft curd cheese usually used as a topping for pizza?
Mozzarella.
Correct. John, In April 1993, which tennis player was stabbed in the back by a Steffi Graf fan?
Monica Seles.
Correct. Nadia, in which part of England are Catherine Cookson's books mainly set?
Newcastle.
Northeast, I'll accept that. Martin, in nature, what M is the term given to the journey undertaken by animals to other feeding and breeding areas?
Migration.
Correct. Robert, in the United States, what type of television program are presented by David Letterman and Jay Leno?
Current affairs.
No, chat shows. Mark, the Murray and Darling rivers are in which country?
Austria.
Australia. Richard, what type of animal is a charolais?
It's a horse.
A cattle. John, who directed the films Mean Streets, Taxi Driver and Goodfellas?
Martin Scorsese.
Correct, Nadia. Well banked, time up. And in that round, you managed to put in the kitty only £270 out of a possible another £1,000. Who doesn't deserve to go any further? It's time to vote off the weakest link.
The only player to have answered all his questions correctly, Martin is the strongest link for the second time. The weakest link statistically is John, also for the second time. He survived before, will he survive again?
Voting over, it's time to reveal who you think is the weakest link.
John.
Richard.
Robert.
Robert.
John.
John.
Mark, why John?
Answer's incorrect.
Robert, why John?
Well, he nominated me last time when I was the strongest link, so his judgment is weak.
Right. John, with 3 votes, you have been voted the weakest link. Goodbye.
I actually think Robert should have gone off instead of me because he's failing to bank on a regular basis, and when he does hesitate to get questions wrong, as we all do, he's taking far too long and he's costing valuable time because obviously there's less time in each round as we go on.
Round 5, and in the bank so far, team, there's £1,220, but if you'd hit your targets, that bank would contain £4,000. 5 of you left, another 10 seconds coming off the time. We start with the strongest link from the last round, that's Martin. Let's play the weakest link. Start the clock. Martin, in nature, what H is a cross of different species?
Hybrid.
Correct. Robert, which political party is the MP Theresa May a member of?
Labour.
Conservative Party. Mark, in literature, who was the arch-enemy of Robin Hood?
Sheriff of Nottingham.
Correct. Richard, in nature, what is the pigment which makes plants green?
Chlorophyll.
Correct. Nadia?
Bank.
In maths, how many degrees are there in a right angle?
90.
Correct. Martin, in pop music, which American state provided the title of the Bee Gees' first #1 hit?
Massachusetts.
Correct. Robert, in art, what name is given to the furnace used to fire pottery?
Kiln.
Correct. Mark,
Bank.
in history, was Samuel Johnson or Samuel Pepys born first?
Samuel Johnson.
Samuel Pepys. Richard, The Ipcress Fire was which author's first novel?
Adams.
Len Deighton. Nadia, in sport, which Finnish city hosted the 1952 Summer Olympics?
Pass.
Helsinki. Martin, at this year's Oscars, which film won Best Film?
American Beauty.
Correct. Robert, Stephen Gately is one of the singers in which pop group?
Boyzone.
Correct. Mark, in biology, what eye is the name of the period between catching a disease and the appearance of its symptoms?
Infection.
Incubation. Richard, who wrote the children's story The Little Mermaid?
Hans Christian Andersen.
Correct. Nadia, the prisoner of war camp Colditz is in which European country?
Poland.
Germany. Martin, on December the 14th, 1911, Roald Amundsen became the first man to reach what?
Pass.
The South Pole. Robert, in classical music, what is the first name of the Russian composer Tchaikovsky?
Gregor.
Peter. Mark, in TV, what would you expect to see on CNN?
News.
Correct. Richard?
Bank.
Which musical features the song Thank Heavens for Little Girls?
Gigi.
Correct. Nadia. In sport, in which town is the JJB Stadium home to the Football and Rugby League clubs Athletics and Warriors?
Newcastle.
Wigan. Martin.
Bank.
Which writer? OK, time up. I can't complete the question. And in that round, a rather sad £170 was banked. It's time to vote off the weakest link.
This round's strongest link is Richard, who got the most right answers and also banked money for the team. The worst player statistically is Nadia. She got the most questions wrong, but will the team have picked up on that?
Voting over, it's time to reveal who you think is the weakest link.
Mark.
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 Richard.
Nadia.
Richard. Why Mark?
Well, after all his bluffing, he's shown his true colours. And unfortunately, his answers were a lot worse than the rest of us.
Mark, with 3 votes, you are the weakest link. Goodbye.
I think Nadia should leave the show in the next round, purely because I think she's on the slippery slope of lost confidence and she could cost the team dearly.
Round 6, team, and you have in the bank £1,390. You could have won £5,000 by now. We start with the strongest link from the last round. That's Richard. Let's play the weakest link. Start the clock. Richard, in the Bible, what did the dove bring Noah as a sign of dry land?
Olive branch.
Correct. Nadia. The Ginza is a famous shopping district in which Asian city?
Delhi.
Tokyo. Martin. In which county does the horse racing event Royal Ascot take place?
Pass.
Berkshire. Robert. Heathcliff and Cathy are lovers in which Emily Bronte novel?
Wuthering Heights.
Correct. Richard. Who was the first monarch to live in Buckingham Palace?
Queen Victoria.
Correct. Nadia.
Bank.
The east coast of Florida is on which ocean?
Atlantic.
Correct. Martin. In television, who starred as Magnum P.I.?
Tom Selleck.
Correct. Robert. How many inches are there in 1 foot?
12.
Correct. Richard.
Bank.
In sport, which boxer known as the Hitman held world championships at 5
Thomas
different
Hearns.
weights? Correct. Nadia. In the animal kingdom, piranhas are native to the rivers of which continent?
South America.
Correct. Martin. In
Bank.
a theatre, which W is the offstage space on either side of a stage?
Grand Opera House, Sydney.
Wings. Robert. In pop music, When Doves Cry and 1999 were hits for which American singer?
B.B. King.
Prince. Richard. In mythology, which king is said to have tried to turn back the tide?
King Canute.
Correct. Nadia. In nature, what is agronomy the study of?
Fish.
Crops and soils. Martin. In film, Judi Dench won an Oscar and Cate Blanchett a BAFTA for playing which historical figure?
Queen Elizabeth I.
Correct. Robert. Which major anti-nuclear movement was founded in London in 1958?
CND.
Correct. Richard.
Bank.
In which year was Prince Charles invested as Prince of Wales?
1969.
Correct.
Bank.
Nadia. In food, what ingredient causes bread to ferment and rise?
Yeast.
Correct. Martin. In tennis, who did Pete Sampras beat in the men's singles final at Wimbledon 2000?
Pass.
Pat Rafter. Robert. Empty hand is the literal meaning to describe what martial art?
Karate.
That is the correct answer, but time was up. And in that round, you put into the kitty £270. One of you is about to leave with nothing. It's time to vote off the weakest link. Voting over, it's time to reveal who you think is the weakest link.
Robert.
Martin.
Nadia.
Martin.
Martin.
Boo-hoo.
Sorry, Martin?
Boo-hoo.
Boo-hoo? Right. Now, I caught you looking at what Nadia was writing and what Robert was writing.
Yeah.
Did that influence your decision?
No, because I did know that Nadia wasn't so good on the questions and was panicking with the banking, and so I thought Nadia should go.
Nadia, why
Yes.
Martin?
Simply because you got more questions wrong than I did.
Martin, your second time on the show, so this bit won't be unfamiliar to you.
Thanks.
Martin, with 2 votes, you are the weakest link. Goodbye.
Being back for the second time, there was a bit of pressure because people thought, oh, he knows what he's doing. But I did go out in the second round last time, which was pretty awful. And so I'm quite pleased with the fact that I got this far. I feel I could have won if I hadn't have been so stupid with my questions, because it is up for grabs out there. Any one of the final 3 could win it.
Round 17, and you have a far from amazing £1,660 in the bank, when by now you could have had 6,000. 3 of you left. Another 10 seconds off the clock. We start with the strongest link from the last round. That's Richard. Let's play the weakest link. Start the clock. Richard, in the animal kingdom, sockeye is a variety of which fish?
Carp.
Salmon. Nadia, in TV, what was the profession of Clive Anderson before he became
He's
a
a
presenter?
barrister.
Correct. Robert, in history, the Battle of Bosworth Field was the last battle of which war?
The English Civil War. The English Civil War.
War of the Roses. Richard, by what name are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints often known?
Christians.
Mormons. Nadia, brothers Ian and Greg Chappell both captained Australia at which sport?
Cricket.
Correct. Robert, in 1861, who wrote the novel Silas Marner?
I can't waste the time. Can't remember.
George Eliot. Richard, in pop music, whose biggest hit was Sitting on the Dock of the Bay?
Otis Redding.
Correct. Nadia, what fraction of 1 yard is 1 foot?
A 12th.
1/3. Robert, in which country was 20th century composer Irving Berlin born?
Germany.
Russia. Richard, who was American President George Bush's vice president?
Dan Quayle.
Correct. Nadia, which comedy duo came to England in the film A Chump at Oxford?
Laurel and Hardy.
Correct. Robert, what sort of London king was Henry Croft the first of in 1875?
Pearly King.
Correct. Richard,
Bank.
who became king at the Restoration in 1660?
George I.
Charles II. Nadia, in the animal kingdom, what kind of creature is a natterjack?
Aardvark.
A toad. Robert, in TV, which of the Generation Game hostesses did Bruce Forsyth marry?
Anthea Redfern.
Correct. Richard,
Bank.
which Spanish football club sacked Terry Venables as its
Barcelona.
coaches? Correct. Nadia, which Irish rock band had a hit with Where the Streets Have No Name?
U2.
Correct. Robert, in which South American city is Copacabana Beach? Time's up. The correct answer was Rio de Janeiro. Right, you banked £170 in that round. In round 8, you get the chance to treble what you bank, so let's hope you do better. That means in the next round, there's £3,000 to be won. The question is, who isn't performing any longer? It's time to vote off the weakest link.
The statistics are similar for all 3 players, but Robert is the weakest link with the least correct answers, and Nadia is the strongest link with the most questions right. But who will lose out in this final vote?
Voting over, please reveal who you think is the weakest link.
Robert.
Robert.
Nadia.
Robert, why Nadia?
Well, sooner her than me.
Right.
And Richard has been leading the field. I think Nadia and I were about equal.
You
and
weren't. She was far better than you.
I'd like to re-examine these statistics in more detail.
No, she got 4 questions correct and 2 wrong, and you got 2 right and 3 wrong.
Very close.
With 2 votes, you are the weakest link. Robert, goodbye.
Thank you. It's frustrating to have done fairly well and be edged out just at that last moment. Not much to choose between us, and I think probably Richard will edge it over Nadia.
Round 8, and you have £1,830 in the bank. There could have been 7,000 by now. Richard and Nadia, only 2 of you left. And this time you have just 90 seconds. But whatever you win in this round will be trebled and added to your total to make up your final prize money. £3,000 is at stake in this round. We start with the strongest link from the last round. That's Nadia. Let's play the weakest link. Start the clock. Nadia, who in 1812 was the only British Prime Minister ever to be assassinated?
Lord Liverpool.
Spencer Percival. Richard, what is the name of the style of art shown in the work of Salvador Dali?
Modernist.
Surrealism. Nadia, which film first teamed Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire in 1933?
High Society.
Flying Down to Rio. Richard, in TV, name the 2 characters who lived together in the sitcom Men Behaving Badly.
Can't remember.
Gary and Tony. Nadia, what is the name of rock and roll star Marty Wilde's chart-topping daughter?
Kim Wilde.
Correct. Richard, in which US state is Mount Rushmore?
Arkansas.
South Dakota. Nadia, who was the first black model to appear on the cover of both the French and British
Naomi
Vogue magazine?
Campbell.
Correct. Richard, which country is Sherry originally from?
Spain.
Correct.
Bank.
Nadia, who played Sally Bowles in the 72 film Cabaret?
Liza Minnelli.
Correct. Richard, where is Lord Nelson buried?
St Paul's Cathedral.
Correct. Nadia, Shelley's poem To Which Bird begins Hail to Thee, Blithe Spirit?
Dove.
Skylark. Richard, which area of woodland and heath in Hampshire was declared a royal hunting ground by William I?
New Forest.
Correct. Nadia, Walt Disney himself did the voice for which early Disney character?
Mickey Mouse.
Correct. Richard,
Bank.
the Golden Temple of Amritsar is the centre for which religion?
Hinduism.
Sikhism. Nadia. Time up. And between you in that round, you managed to put in the kitty just £90. Never mind, we'll treble that and add it to the winnings from the previous rounds. That means prize money today, £2,100. But only one of you can take that money away. You will now play against each other head-to-head. I'll ask alternate questions, best of 5. Whoever answers the most correctly wins. It's as simple as that. If there's a tie after 5, we'll go for sudden death until we have a winner. So, Nadia and Richard, for £2,100, let's play the weakest link. Nadia, as the strongest link in the last round, you have the choice of who goes first.
I should go first, Anne.
Nadia, in which country would you find the Alhambra Palace?
Spain.
That's the correct answer. Richard, in astrology, which is the only sign of the zodiac not represented by a living creature?
Libra.
That is the correct answer. Nadia, in the Vatican, which chapel is named in honour of Pope Sixtus IV?
The Sistine Chapel.
That is the correct answer. Richard, in the Thomas the Tank Engine books, what is the name of the helicopter?
Henry.
Harold is the correct answer. Nadia, in the Shakespeare play A Midsummer Night's Dream, Robin Goodfellow is another name for which character?
Puck.
That is the correct answer. Richard, the song I've Had the Time of My Life comes from which Patrick Swayze movie?
Dirty Dancing.
That is the correct answer. Nadia. Which Olympic sport was first called mintonette when invented in 1895 in Holyoke, Massachusetts?
Badminton.
Volleyball is the correct answer. Richard. In mythology, what ancient people did the Greeks believe were a race of gigantic beings?
The Amazons.
The Titans is the correct answer. Nadia. Answer this question correctly and you have won £2,100. Which former political party leader retired as MP for Plymouth Devonport at the 1992 general election?
Sir David Steele.
The answer is David Owen. So, Richard, to stay in the game, what mode of travel was invented by Christopher Cockerell in 1959?
A hovercraft.
That is the correct answer. Right, after 5 questions, your scores are tied. We now go into a sudden death situations. The questions will continue in pairs. Nadia, if you get your question correct, then Richard will have to answer his correctly or he will lose. And if you get your question wrong, Nadia, then Richard will have to answer his correctly to win. So, Nadia and Richard, let's play sudden death. Nadia. In pop music, who was the manager of the Beatles?
George Adams.
Brian Epstein. So, Richard, answer this question correctly and you have won £2,100. In the TV series EastEnders, what is Beppe Di Marco's son called?
Sam.
He's called Joe. Nadia, in area, what is the world's largest country?
Russia.
That is the correct answer. Richard, mute and whistling are types of which bird?
Thrush.
The correct answer is swan. That means, Nadia, you are today's strongest link and you go away with £2,100. Richard, you leave with nothing. Join us next time for the weakest link. Goodbye.
Having realised that I've banked nearly half the amount of the total, it's disappointing to suddenly realise you're going to walk away with nothing at all. But only one person can win, and Nadia, well done to her.
Just a total surprise, really, but of course I'm delighted. I mean, extra £2,000 is, you know, brilliant, and I'm very happy that I won it.